Hey guys, Mr. Martin with the video for enhanced for loops with arrays. There's only 4 questions. If you just want the answers, it is E, D, what is 3? Where's 3? D, and B. So E, D, D, B. If you want an explanation, hang around for a moment. All right, so for number 1, all of these are going to contain for loops that we are going to turn into either an enhanced for loop or look at an enhanced for loop and try to turn it back into a regular for loop. So this method, static void add 1 to everything, takes an array called numbers, and inside the method, it goes through the array 1 by 1, and it updates the array value by 1. So if we did like number 0, again, the plus, I'm sorry, you can't see any of that. The numbers plus numbers 0, for instance, plus is going to take whatever value is in numbers position 0, add 1 to it, and put that value back in for number 0. And you're going to do that for every value in that array. Now, the question is, which one of the following code segments, if any, can be used to replace the method of the body so that numbers will contain the same value? And the important distinction is not which one of these methods will print the same value, which one will put into the array numbers the exact same value. And arrays are static unless you refer to the array position to update that value. So all these for loops do is reference the array. They don't change the array. All of these make references to the array, and some of them aren't actually properly typed. They'll result in some weird errors. So again, arrays are static, meaning that they cannot be changed unless you go back and actually change the position. And when I say change the value at the position, and this method does that, like numbers J, it like changes whatever index the value at the particular array position by 1, because it's referring to the array and the position. This first enhanced for loop says that, all right, we have an array of integers. Call any value in the array numbers num. And for that, do num plus plus. That's just not going to do anything because this is a reference to the array, and it won't stick unless we copy the array. So this is a reference only. Like if we did a print statement for this, we would get the same thing that we would get here, but that's not the same as these values actually being stored in the array. What's going to happen is that it would just increment that by 1, and as soon as it moves on to the next one, it forgets that it did that. For 2, it's just not proper syntax because the name of the array is numbers, not num. This is saying for anything in the array numbers, just call it num and add 1 to it. So 2 is just not proper syntax. And 3, it doesn't work either because num refers to a value at an array position. And this is going to start at 0 and go until we get to the end. So say, like, this is going to start at, you know what, let's write down some array values. So say we had 0, 7, 6, and 4. When you have an enhanced for loop, the iteration value is implied. It implies that you're going to start at 0 and go to the end. So this would look first for numbers, and then num is going to be the first value that's stored here. So number 0 would refer back to 0, so that would work. You update it by 1. But then if you did numbers num and keep going, you would try to access numbers 7, which doesn't work. Because again, this does not refer to an array position, it refers to an array value. And so if you increment by 1, so we have 0, 1, 2, and 3. So this would access 0, it would access 0, 7, 6, and 4. And these, when you substitute them in, they don't necessarily go back to anything in the array. 7, 6, and 4 all are values that would result in out of bounds exceptions for this array. So 3 also doesn't work. And 1 doesn't either. So the answer is E. None of these segments will return an equivalent result because arrays are statically typed. You cannot change an array unless you directly access the value to change it. For number 2, it's kind of building on that same thing. We have an integer array that has 4, 2, 9, 7, and 3. And then we have this enhanced for loop that says for an integer in this array called ARR, we're going to call everything in there K. So this is a K, that's a K, that's a K, that's a K, and that's a K. If it helps, you can think about it as K subscript 0. So then 4 be K subscript 0, K1, K2, K3, and K4. Because when you do an enhanced for loop, you're always going to start at the beginning and go to the end. So, and just increment by 1. So when we say add 10 to the value of, we're taking the value that's in the array and adding 10 to it and replacing the array with that. And you print that value for K. So we're going to do 4 plus 10, which is 14, and then put that in this array position. We'll print it. You're not actually going to overwrite it based on what we said on the previous thing. So when we print this, we get 14, 12, 19, 17, and 13. That's because of this enhanced for loop. So A is automatically out, B is automatically out, C is automatically out. And so now we just get down to either D or E as the possible correct answer. Both initially print 14, 12, 19, 17, and 13 as the first part because that's what these two lines do. Add 10 to the value, then print the value. Now the second call is print the array just as it was for int K. So for some value in the array, starting at the beginning, just print that value plus a space. So again, because arrays are statically typed, not dynamic, this doesn't update the value in the array. It just makes a reference to it and adds 10 to it. So what we should get is 14, 12, 19, 17, 13, and then just print this old array 4, 2, 9, 7, 3 again. And so that's why D is the correct answer. Because this does not change the value in the array. It makes a reference to that value and adds 10 to it and then prints it. So D is the correct answer. For number 3, we have this method that, we have a loop that says for some value in the array, so for some value in the array, our sum, which starts at 0, is going to be the sum plus 2 times the array value. So this is an array value, not a position. So the sum is going to just is essentially double every value in the array. So then print the sum. So we're just looking for a loop that does the same thing. So when we look at each of our options, for A, what happens is we have a sum that starts at 0, K is going to equal 0, and go to the length of the array, increment by 1. This is going to do sum plus 2 times the index value. So K is an index here, so that doesn't work. We want the actual array value multiplied by 2. B is kind of the same thing, except this would result in an out of bounds. Because if we have an array that has 8 elements, then array.length is going to be 8, but arrays are 0 index. So when this tries to get to ARR position 8, that's not going to work. So B doesn't work. C, we have a similar thing where we have from 1 to array.length. But again, since arrays are 0 index, this would also result in an out of bounds exception. So C doesn't work. Now D and E are close to the same thing. The only difference is this is an out of bounds thing because arrays are 0 indexed. So the reason D or E could work if this was just less than is that the sum is going to be 2 times each array value. And so you have to reference the array value using k. So array k is going to start at array 0 times 2, then array 1 times 2, and so forth. And both D and E accomplish that. But again, the reason E is not correct is that if k can equal the length of the array, that's going to be 1 more than the array can actually store. So we would get an out of bounds exception. So E is not correct. D would be the correct answer. And last, for number 4, is we have an integer array that has 1, 2, 4, 0, and 3. And we have this enhanced for loop that just basically prints each value one by one. So I is the array value, not the array position, in an enhanced for loop. So which of these prints the same thing? If we look at 1, we have an integer array equals this, and then we have 4 and I. This is just improper syntax for an enhanced for loop, so 1 can't work. You would just have to print I, because the only difference between this and 1 is that this says array I, and again, imagine you got, even if this could work, if you got to array, it wouldn't print them in the same order. If you got to like here, array 0, it wouldn't work. So for 2, we have some array 1, 2, 4, 0, 3, and then we have for I equals 0, I is less than, it goes up to the length of the array, add 1, and print I. This prints the index value, because here I is the index. Anytime we see the iterator, I is going to be the index. So 2 doesn't work. And then when we look at 3, we have the same array, but when we actually have the same for loop, I goes from 0 to the length of the array, I plus plus. But in this case, it refers to array I, the position. So again, in this case, it refers to the index. So 3 does work. It would print exactly what this does. Because this, when we see in the enhanced for loop, the I is the value. In a traditional for loop, I is the index. So the index has to go, we have to go up one by one. Array 0 would be 1, array 1 would be 2, array 2 would be 4, array 3 would be 0, and array 4 would be 3. And here, this would immediately say print array 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we would get exactly the same thing. So only 3 works. My recommendation to you all is that if none of these make sense, always go back into your compiler and type them out. If this was helpful, great. If not, talk to me in class.